Hello and welcome to another episode of Shop Happenings. So today we're going to take a look at our amazing maze and show how to make paths and then hopefully program it. So here we go. So I brought in my maze and I see that it's not oriented correctly. I need to get the maze on the top plane so that I can machine it. We don't have a 5-axis, we have 3-axis, so we got to get it there. To do that, I'm going to go up here to transform and rotate. And before I click rotate, I have to make sure that I understand I'm rotating along the right side view. So I need to change my C plane to right side. You may have to change this differently, but I'll show you how this works in a second. So I'm going to go over here to rotate. And once I select that, I'm just going to select my object, end my selection. I'm going to select move here and notice that I have a circle, and that circle allows me to rotate this. When that sets that plane over here, when we set our C plane, that changes the orientation of that. At this point, notice that won't change. See, it keeps changing. It goes to the top view. So it will change as we go. But we have to pay attention to what we're doing. So we're going to make sure we're in the right side. And that'll allow me to rotate this way. Whoops, went way too fast. So you see what I mean? Now, the hard part is because it jumps around a little bit, I don't like using this. So I know that I've got to get up here so I'm flat. And you'll see that it's like maybe 270 degrees. So once I get there, I click. The other way to do that is to select this over here and just change that to 270 if you have to go 270. So that's all set. So here we are. The next thing I'm going to do instantly is go back to the C plane thing and go back to top. And the reason I'm going back to top is because that's what I want to work in. Next is we want this at 0. It makes our life easier when we get to a machine. So now what we're going to do is we're going to stay in this transform function, but we're going to look for this move to origin. And all this does is say I want to put this corner, whatever corner we want, which is the upper left corner, at the origin. So there it is. Now it's in the right spot. The next thing we're going to do is go down here to levels. I'm going to select levels. And notice I've got my maze demo here. So that's my cube. I want to make another maze and make a bunch of lines. These lines are going to signify our tool paths. So I'm just going to call it lines. And I just hit enter and it'll save it here. And notice that my arrow, my check mark is the active layer. So that shows active layer. I can turn on and off for the maze, but I can't turn on and off an active level visibility. If I come up here, I can turn it on and off. So I'm just going to go back to 2, and I'm going to also see my top view. So the way I got this menu is I right click, go to top, and all I'm going to do is make some lines that represent the path of my maze. So my maze is all done. It's pretty simple. I'm not going to do all of them, but I just want to show you how this works. So I'm going to go up here to wireframe, making sure I'm in level 2. I'm going to go to my endpoint lines. And these are really cool the way this program works. I really like it. Is if I hover on an arc, so if I just zoom in a little bit, you can see that if I stick on this arc, it gives me the center point. I'm not on the center point. Notice my mouse is out here on the edge. I can also get the center node. I can get, again, along its circumference. I can get edge nodes, again, along its circumference. But I want the center. So if I see this little symbol, that circle with a plus in it, I just click. And notice it puts the beginning of that line at the center. All I'm doing is scrolling out and scrolling back in. I look for that again, and there's my line. So I'm going to repeat that process a couple times. So you said center to center. I can go center to center. And my lines don't have to be vertical and horizontal. Remember, it's a maze. It can be all over the place. It can be all cattywampus. It's fine. So I'm just going to do that. And I'm going to run one out here. Okay? So there's kind of a path. To get this vertical path in here, it's real easy. Just come down here and click this. Oops, I grabbed the wrong spot, so I just escape once. Come back and see if I can find that center point. There it is. Come straight up. And I'm going to go past that. I'm going to show you kind of a little funky thing with the program. So I'm going to rotate this now, and you'll see that my lines aren't on the same plane. Oh, crud. I can't trim them. They won't trim. I'm going to go back to top here. Remember, that's right-click, top. If I go to trim, and I use my trim one entity function over here, I say I want this line to trim to this line, it's going to come up with this error and say, no, you don't like that. Well, the reason is because they're on different planes. So that means we screwed up. No, we didn't. We just need to get them on the right plane. So here's the benefit to this whole level thing. So I'm going to go back to levels. I'm going to get out of my function, go back to levels, and I'm going to turn off the visibility of that. So you can see all my lines are kind of floating here in space really crappy, which is okay. I'm going to go back to top view, and we're going to watch this happen really quick. So I'm going to highlight all my lines. In transform, I'm going to look for this project. And this is a really cool function because remember, our lines are all over the place, right? Like an elephant with diarrhea. And we want to get those right. So we're just going to come up here to project. And what's cool is we're going to move them to the depth of 0. And because we're on our top plane down here, it's going to put them on the top plane. So when I hit the green check, you'll notice now they're all on the same plane. Oh, that's just cool. That is just amazing. So we're going to go back and turn our maze back on so we can see what we're doing here. I'm going to go back to right-click top. And we're going to real quick trim this up. Notice my maze is all crooked and cattywampus. That's fine. It can be. We designed it to be a maze, and it will be amazing. So we're going to now go up here to wireframe again, and we're going to jump over here to trim. And when we're in trim, we're going to use trim entity. And this does not work like SolidWorks. So we click on the line we want to keep, and we want to trim it to that line. And notice it trims right up. So if I did that again, if I made a line that went from like the center of this out here way away, notice it sticks way out, and it's also crooked. So let's review that again. We can take that line, grab that line, go to transform, project, move to a depth of 0 because we're on our top plane, and click OK, and there it is. That is sweet. And then we go back to wireframe, trim, and I say I want this line to trim to that line. And that's the path that my bit's going to make. That's pretty cool. All right. So far, so good. I'm not going to do all of them because I don't really need to show you all of that, but that's the process in which we do that. So now what we're going to do is go to toolpaths. And because we're putting this on one of our larger machines, we're going to pick a machine that makes sense. Right? It's either the OKK or the Miltronic. So I'm going to grab up here my machine. So this is this tab. Go over here, Mill, and OKK. And there's my machine group. So now what I'm going to do is we're going to set this up. I'll have to edit this in, but you will see how this works here in a second. So what I've done thus far, remember, is we put our paths in. I've come over here, I've set up my machine, and I've clicked Files, and that opens up this window. And what this window shows me is that I'm going to machine with the OKK, and that's all I'm going to look for is that. If you're working with the Miltronics, that'll say Centurion here. I'm going to go to Tool Settings in this tab, and I'm going to change all of my tool default number to 1. I'm going to start my sequence at 1 and increment at 1, and this will make more sense as we go, but I'm not going to explain this yet. Next, I'm going to assign my tool number sequentially, warn of duplicates, and I'm going to override all of my defaults, which gives me more control over my program. The other thing I want to do is I want to select my material, and because this is a 6061 material, I'm just coming over here with this new menu, selecting library, selecting aluminum 6061, and clicking OK. So there's that. So once I've got this all set up, I'm going to go to stock setup. I'm going to pick this as my origin. And because I'm lazy, I'm going to pick all solids. And that's going to pick all the solids and populate this with my 2" by 2" by 1/2 inch thick maze, which makes life really, really easy for me. So once that's done, all we have to do now is click the green check. And that takes us out of this. And now we're back to part of the program. So now that we've gone through our properties, files, tool settings, stock setup, we're now going to set up to make our paths. And the easiest way to do this is we're going to shut off the visibility for the cubes. I'm going to levels. I'm going to take the maze demo layer. I'm going to shut it off. So all we see are lines here, which is kind of nice. What's new to us is after we did our stock setup, excuse me, after we did our stock setup, you will see that this red cube is here. That was done in our stock setup, and we turned the visibility of that on so we can actually see our stock to see if it coincides with our cube, and it should wrap our cube nicely, and it does. So the next thing I'm going to do is go to Toolpaths. I'd like to see this here. I'm going to select Contour. And this should automatically default to this. After you've picked Machine, it should jump right to Toolpaths. In this case, we're going to use Contour. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom out a little bit, go right-click top again so I can see all of my lines. I'm going to grab this, which is my wireframe box, because that's what we're dealing with, our lines. I'm going to grab my little window box, and all I'm going to do is put a window around all my lines. Once I've done that, it's asking me up here to select an approximate start point. Well, I'm going to start there. It doesn't really matter. And look at that. I made Christmas. Woo! So now that I've got this, that's where the bit's going to travel. So I'm going to click OK. And once I've done that, this menu pops up, which is my 2D contour dialog box. So you can see that I've picked 3 lines. And no, I don't think I'm a tree, even if I say geometry. But I can pick 3 different entities, and it's showing me that I did that because it's 3 paths, because you don't think so, but it's like 1 and 2 and 3. So I've picked those 3 tabs. I'm going to pick my tool, and in this case, we're going to use Select Tool Library. And hopefully you can see this on your screen. So I'm going to go to Filter. I'm going to go to Equal with an end mill here selected. And if all these are selected, if it looks like that, click None, and then click End mill. And I'm going to make this equal to 0.125, which is an 1/8 inch end mill. And once I've done that, I'm going to click the end mill. I'm going to click Go again. And then I'm going to go to my holder, which I'm going to ignore for now. I'm going to go to Cut Parameters. And in this case, notice that I've got my bit is on the left side of the line. So if I click here, I can go to the right side of the line, but I can't get down the middle, and we want to go down the middle. To get down the middle, we just click this and say Off. And that puts the bit right down the middle. Just like if we can divide something into thirds right down the middle, we can divide our bit right down the middle, which is awesome. Notice all these went to zeros because it's going to default to that because we're going down the middle, so we're good. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to lead and lead out, and what we're going to do is ignore all of this. We're going to shut this off. You're saying, what? What the heck? We're going to get back to this in a little bit, but I don't want to leave this on for now. Next, we're going to go to linking parameters. I'm going to turn on my clearance, and my clearance is only going to be used at the beginning and the end, so we're going to leave a 2-inch clearance at absolute. All of our programming is going to be done in absolute 0. We've gone over that in class and how that works. That's a G90 code. Our retract is going to be 0.25. Our feed plane, we're going to screw down to about 0.1. It gives us a little better feed plane. Our top of stock is going to be 0. And our depth, oh boy, how do we pick depth? Well, if you forgot you're an 1/8 inch deep or you forgot the fraction, we can come in here to depth and we can pick the depth by selecting our level, turning back on our maze, spinning a little bit, and going, hey, I want to go down there. And notice it makes it an 1/8 inch deep. So that kind of makes it easy for us. Once I do that, I'm just going to ignore everything else and click OK. So we're actually going to plunge in here. You're going to see how this works. We're going to ramp in a little later. But for right now, we're going to show you how this works. So we're going to jump to a new screen. And that new screen is going to show us how this verifies. So here we've hit the verify button in Mastercam. Verify button gets us to this screen. We slide this slider back a little bit, and we can actually watch what happens. You'll see here that our bit plunges in and then continues along. We don't want to plunge in here. We want to ramp in. It's easier on our bit and gives us a better finish overall. So now that we've done that verify function and we're back here to our cube, we want to make sure we don't just plunge in. Our end mills are not center cutting, so we're going to actually ramp in. So if I go back to parameters, and I'm going to grab up here to my cut parameters. Right now it's in 2D contour. We're going to ramp in. And that ramp in is going to allow us to ramp in, and we're going to go at like a 12-degree angle in. Works really good for us. We're going to click OK. And you'll notice now that blue line that was there before ramps down, ramps down, ramps down. And you're going to see in our video it's going to change. And notice over here, this is really ramping weird too. And that's where it should be. So let's go take a look at that. So here we are back in Verify. I've started and stopped this really quick so you can see that this ramps in. We want all of our tool bits to ramp into where they need to go. It's easier on a bit, and we get a better finish. So now that we're done with that, you can go to the sheet by my door that matches your machine. There are containers that walk you through the process of how to go to G1. I'm not going to put that in the video, but that's what we're going to do next. And you're going to go through that process and get this posted so that we can go machine it, providing that all of your paths are correct. Hope this helps. And as always, if you have questions, comments, concerns, or violent disagreements, please reach out and ask.